value is not recognized immediately. People often don't realize the worth of what they have until it's gone. Regret comes when they realize they overlooked the treasure that was right in front of them. You are defined by your own strength, not others' regret. Your worth isn't determined by how others treat you or whether they recognize your value. It is defined by your strength, love, and grace regardless of their acknowledgement. Growth comes through letting go. Though it's painful, letting go of someone who didn't appreciate you creates space for growth, healing, and a stronger sense of self. Do not settle for being second best. You deserve to be seen, respected, and valued by the right people. Don't settle for anyone who only comes back to you out of regret or convenience. Your peace and worth come from within. The right people will appreciate you for who you are. By maintaining your inner strength, you will find peace, and you'll be able to move forward, knowing that your worth is not defined by others' actions. There are moments in life when you pour everything into a relationship, whether it's a friendship, a romantic partnership, or even a family bond, and yet it doesn't seem to matter. You give your time, your energy, your love, and sometimes all you get in return is indifference or worse, neglect. It's painful, isn't it, to give so much of yourself and feel unseen, unheard, unappreciated. But what you need to understand is that value is not always recognized immediately. Often, it takes the absence of something to fully understand its worth. But that realization, as painful as it might be, is not always something you can control. You can't force someone to see your value. You can't make them understand the depth of your love or the sacrifices you've made. That awareness has to come on its own, and sometimes it only comes after time has passed, after life has shown them what happens when something important is no longer there. Value is not recognized immediately. People often don't realize the worth of what they have until it's gone. Regret comes when they realize they overlooked the treasure that was right in front of them. You are defined by your own strength, not others' regret. Your worth isn't determined by how others treat you or whether they recognize your value. It is defined by your strength, love, and grace regardless of their acknowledgement. Growth comes through letting go. Though it's painful, letting go of someone who didn't appreciate you creates space for growth, healing, and a stronger sense of self. Do not settle for being second best. You deserve to be seen, respected, and valued by the right people. Don't settle for anyone who only comes back to you out of regret or convenience. Your peace and worth come from within. The right people will appreciate you for who you are. By maintaining your inner strength, you will find peace, and you'll be able to move forward, knowing that your worth is not defined by others' actions. There are moments in life when you pour everything into a relationship, whether it's a friendship, a romantic partnership, or even a family bond, and yet it doesn't seem to matter. You give your time, your energy, your love, and sometimes all you get in return is indifference or worse, neglect. It's painful, isn't it, to give so much of yourself and feel unseen, unheard, unappreciated. But what you need to understand is that value is not always recognized immediately. Often, it takes the absence of something to fully understand its worth. But that realization, as painful as it might be, is not always something you can control. You can't force someone to see your value. You can't make them understand the depth of your love or the sacrifices you've made. That awareness has to come on its own, and sometimes it only comes after time has passed, after life has shown them what happens when something important is no longer there.
Ladies and gentlemen, imagine waking up every day with the weight of uncertainty pressing down on you. The plans you've made, the goals you've set, the challenges you're facing, everything feels like a never-ending battle to control outcomes. We push, we strive, we fight to make things happen exactly as we want them to. And yet, so often, despite all our efforts, things don't go the way we planned. And in those moments, we feel frustrated, anxious, maybe even lost. But what if we let go? What if instead of holding on so tightly, we chose to release the need to control everything? What if we placed our trust in something greater than ourselves? What if, instead of constantly trying to force the pieces to fit, we stepped back and allowed them to fall into place? It's uncomfortable because we're wired to believe that success is entirely up to us, that every detail must be managed, every outcome controlled. But the truth is, there's something powerful about surrender. Not surrender in the sense of giving up, but surrender in the sense of trust. Trust that even when things don't go our way, they are still going the right way. Trust that every setback is preparing us for something greater. Trust that the doors that close are guiding us to the ones that are meant to open. Some of the greatest stories of triumph don't come from people who forced their way to the top. They come from those who walked forward in faith, who kept showing up, who did their part, but left the rest in the hands of something bigger than themselves. And in that trust, they found peace, they found clarity, they found that the right opportunities came, not because they chased them down, but because they allowed them to unfold. So what happens when we truly let go? When we do our best but leave the outcome in God's hands? We free ourselves from unnecessary worry. We move forward with courage instead of fear. We stop trying to force things to happen and start allowing things to happen. And in that space of trust, we begin to see that what's meant for us will always find us. Maybe not in the way we expected, but always in the way we need.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a truth we need to come to terms with today. Every one of us faces moments in life when we feel the sting of anger or the frustration of being bothered by others. It could be a comment, an action, or just the way someone looks at us, and suddenly we find ourselves caught in a whirlwind of emotions. It's a natural reaction, human, even. But let me tell you something, you do not have to be ruled by your emotions. There's a way, a better way, to rise above it all. Now you might be wondering, how do I do that? How do I stop letting others control my peace? Well, it begins with understanding who you are. You are more than the sum of your reactions. You are more than the person who gets upset every time something doesn't go right. You are a person with a heart that's capable of incredible love, patience, and grace. And the moment you start recognizing that, the power to change your responses becomes real. When someone says something hurtful, when someone cuts you off in traffic or lets you down, you can choose to react in anger or you can choose peace. You can choose to let go of what they've said, because holding on to that bitterness does nothing but hurt you. It eats away at your joy, your peace, your ability to live freely. Think about this, forgiveness is the key. When someone wrongs you, they are not the ones who win by you holding on to anger. No, it's you who lose when you let that bitterness take root. You can't change what others do, but you can change how you respond. You can let it go. You can forgive, and by forgiving, you free yourself. The truth is, forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about you. It's about your peace of mind. There will always be people who disappoint you. There will always be situations that try to rob you of your joy. But you have a choice. You can be a prisoner to anger, or you can be free by choosing not to let those things bother you. The moment you stop expecting perfection from others, you free yourself from the chains of frustration. You learn to live with grace, knowing that we are all flawed people, trying our best. You see, anger is often a response rooted in selfishness. We expect the world to treat us the way we want. But that's not always how life works. Life is unpredictable, and people will disappoint you. But when you let go of that need for control, when you allow yourself to see people as imperfect beings just like you, the anger starts to lose its grip on you. And here's the power of it all. When you stop letting anger control you, you start to experience the peace that surpasses all understanding. It's a peace that doesn't come from circumstances or from others, but from a deeper understanding of who you are and where your worth comes from. You are not defined by the way others treat you or the things that happen in your life. You are defined by something much greater, the love and peace that comes from within. So, my friend, the next time you feel the urge to be angry, to feel bothered, stop and remember, you don't have to. You can rise above it. You can choose a different response. And that choice will lead you to a life that is far more peaceful, far more joyful, and far more free than one ruled by anger. The key lies in letting go of what you cannot control and focusing on what you can, your peace, your heart, and your response. In the end, bitterness and unforgiveness are like anchors, keeping us tied to the past and hindering our ability to move forward. While it may seem impossible to forgive in some situations, holding on to pain and resentment only deepens the wound. True healing comes when we release the bitterness and choose forgiveness, not for the sake of the person who wronged us, but for the sake of our own peace and growth. Constant criticism and gossip are destructive forces that can tear down relationships, breed negativity, and harm individuals both emotionally and psychologically. Criticism, in its most unrelenting form, becomes a means of asserting control over others by pointing out their flaws, mistakes, and shortcomings, often without offering constructive feedback or understanding. It can start with seemingly innocent observations, but quickly spiral into a pattern of undermining, belittling, and demeaning others. The person who constantly criticizes may do so out of insecurity, jealousy, or a deep need to feel superior to those around them, using their words to keep others in a state of self-doubt or fear. Constant criticism doesn't just highlight the flaws of others, but magnifies them. Every action or decision is scrutinized, dissected, and presented as evidence of failure. Over time, those who are constantly criticized begin to internalize these negative judgments, questioning their own abilities and worth. What was once an occasional comment or remark becomes a repetitive, unrelenting barrage of negativity, eroding self-esteem and causing emotional harm. The harshness of constant criticism can create an environment where the person being criticized feels inadequate, anxious, or even paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes. Instead of being given room to grow, they are trapped in a cycle of self-criticism and frustration. On the other hand, gossip thrives in a similar environment of negativity. Gossip is a form of communication that often involves sharing rumors, private details, or unverified information about others, typically behind their back. It serves as a way for individuals to bond over shared judgments or to elevate their own status by diminishing others. The person who gossips may spread false or exaggerated details, enjoying the drama that ensues as others respond to the information. Unlike constructive feedback or open communication, gossip takes place in secrecy, fostering an atmosphere of distrust and insecurity. When gossip spreads, it can create division and confusion. Relationships begin to fracture as people are influenced by things that are not based on truth or full understanding. Gossip distorts reality, presenting a version of events that serves the gossiper's agenda. It can lead to misunderstandings and unnecessary conflict, as people may start questioning each other's motives, loyalty, or character based on rumors rather than direct communication. Even when the gossip is not malicious, it still carries an air of disrespect and dishonesty, undermining the integrity of the individuals involved. Constant criticism and gossip can also be a reflection of deeper insecurities in those who engage in these behaviors. They may be dealing with their own feelings of inadequacy, frustration, or fear, and criticizing or gossiping about others gives them a temporary sense of control or superiority. It may also stem from a need to feel better about themselves by putting others down, making themselves feel more significant or important in comparison. Unfortunately, this strategy often backfires. Instead of building a sense of strength or confidence, it fosters isolation and bitterness, as people begin to see the critic or gossiper as untrustworthy or toxic. This cycle of criticism and gossip can also be contagious. Once it begins, others may start to participate, adding their own negative comments or spreading their own versions of rumors. What starts as a small comment can snowball, causing widespread harm. The social environment becomes increasingly hostile and toxic, as people feel the pressure to conform to this culture of judgment and whispering behind closed doors. It's easy to fall into this trap because it provides a false sense of connection and camaraderie, but the damage done to relationships is often irreparable. Moreover, the constant act of criticizing others or gossiping can prevent real issues from being addressed. Instead of engaging in open and honest conversations where differences can be resolved, the focus shifts to complaining or gossiping in secret. Problems remain unsolved because the real conversations are avoided, replaced by whispers and judgment. It becomes easier to criticize from a distance than to engage directly, and this avoidance creates distance between people, leaving wounds unhealed and misunderstandings unresolved. In the end, constant criticism and gossip leave a trail of destruction. They break trust, erode relationships, and create an atmosphere where people feel judged, isolated, and misunderstood. What was once an environment of potential growth and mutual respect becomes one of fear, negativity, and emotional harm. Rather than fostering understanding, growth, and communication, these behaviors foster division, bitterness, and distrust, leaving nothing but brokenness in their wake. Bitterness and unforgiveness are deep-rooted emotions that can poison the soul and disrupt one's peace. When someone experiences hurt or injustice, the natural response is often emotional pain. And while healing may be possible through time and grace, bitterness arises when that pain is allowed to fester. Bitterness is a toxic feeling that grows when a person refuses to let go of past offenses. It transforms initial hurt into a long-lasting resentment that lingers in the heart, keeping the individual trapped in a state of unresolved anger and frustration. Instead of finding a way to move forward, the bitterness serves as a constant reminder of the wrongs done. This bitterness can manifest in many ways. The person may dwell on the hurt over and over, replaying the scenario in their mind, imagining how they should have reacted or what they should have said. These repeated thoughts keep the wound open, making healing nearly impossible. Over time, these feelings of resentment begin to color the way the person sees not only the person who wronged them, but the world around them. It becomes difficult to trust others, to feel joy, or even to experience peace, because bitterness keeps the heart in a state of turmoil. Unforgiveness goes hand in hand with bitterness. When someone chooses not to forgive, they are essentially binding themselves to the pain that was caused. Holding on to unforgiveness can make the individual feel as though they are in control of the situation, as if withholding forgiveness is a form of justice or retribution. However, in reality, the only person truly harmed by unforgiveness is the one who refuses to let go. While the offender may have moved on, the one who holds the grudge remains chained to the past, unable to experience emotional freedom. Unforgiveness clouds judgment, distorts relationships, and often leads to further anger, bitterness, and even hatred. Forgiveness is not about excusing the wrongdoing or making light of the pain experienced. It's about releasing the hold that the offense has on the heart. It is a decision to stop carrying the weight of resentment and to let go of the desire for revenge. But unforgiveness makes this difficult because the person feels as though forgiving would somehow diminish the wrong that was done to them or allow the offender to get away with their actions. They believe that by holding on to their anger, they are protecting themselves or righting a wrong. But this is a lie. Unforgiveness only adds more pain and allows the bitterness to take root. Over time, bitterness and unforgiveness seep into other aspects of life. The individual becomes less patient, less compassionate, and less willing to trust others. They may lash out at people who had nothing to do with the original offense because they've become so consumed by their internal struggle. It can also affect their physical health, as the stress and emotional strain of holding on to negative feelings can manifest in headaches, fatigue, anxiety, and even heart disease. The emotional toll of bitterness wears down the spirit, making it harder to experience joy, gratitude, and love. Relationships, too, suffer under the weight of bitterness and unforgiveness. When someone refuses to forgive, it can create walls between them and others. People may feel that they cannot approach or connect with someone who is consumed by unresolved pain. The bitterness becomes a filter through which all interactions are viewed, making it impossible to see things clearly or engage in healthy, honest relationships. Even when others try to help or offer support, the person may push them away because they are so focused on their own hurt. In a spiritual sense, bitterness and unforgiveness hinder personal growth and spiritual maturity. The teachings of many faiths, including Christianity, emphasize the importance of forgiveness. In the Lord's Prayer, Jesus teaches us to forgive others as we have been forgiven, recognizing that forgiveness is essential to living a life that reflects grace and love. Holding on to unforgiveness cuts us off from the freedom that comes with releasing grudges, and it prevents the healing process from taking place. When we choose to forgive, we are not only setting the other person free, but we are also freeing ourselves from the chains of anger and resentment.